It all started with a dusty old key. Emma had always been drawn to her grandmother's attic, a cluttered treasure trove of forgotten memories. Boxes of yellowed photographs, vintage dresses, and tarnished jewelry filled the space, but it was the small, rusted key that caught her eye. It was tucked inside an envelope with her name on it, written in her grandmother's elegant handwriting. "What does this open?" Emma wondered aloud, turning the key over in her hands. Her grandmother had passed away years ago, leaving behind more questions than answers. Determined to solve the mystery, Emma began searching the house for a lock that matched the key. Hours turned into days as she combed through every room, every drawer, every corner. Just as she was about to give up, she noticed something strange in the basement. Behind a stack of old furniture, there was a door she had never seen before. It was small, barely noticeable, with a lock that matched the key perfectly. Her heart raced as she inserted the key and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. With a flashlight in hand, Emma descended the steps, her footsteps echoing in the silence. At the bottom, she found herself in a hidden room. The walls were lined with shelves, each filled with strange artifacts, ancient books, peculiar trinkets, and maps of places she didn't recognize. But what caught her attention was the large, ornate mirror in the center of the room. As she approached the mirror, her reflection began to shimmer and distort. Before she could react, the surface rippled like water, and a hand reached out, grabbing her arm. Emma screamed as she was pulled into the mirror, tumbling into a world unlike anything she had ever seen. The world on the other side was both familiar and alien. The sky was a deep shade of purple, and the trees glowed faintly in the twilight. Strange creatures roamed the landscape, and in the distance, she saw a towering castle made of crystal. Emma stumbled to her feet, her heart pounding as she took in the surreal landscape around her. The air was thick with the scent of something sweet and unfamiliar, and the ground beneath her feet shimmered faintly, as if made of crushed gemstones. She turned, her eyes widening as she saw a figure approaching her. He was tall, with piercing blue eyes and an air of quiet confidence. His presence was both calming and unnerving. "Who are you?" Emma demanded, taking a step back. Her voice trembled, but she tried to sound firm. "Where am I? What is this place?" The man held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "My name is Kale. I'm here to help you." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Help me? How do I know I can trust you? I don't even know where I am." Kale's expression softened. "I understand your fear. This place is called the Verdant Expanse. It's one of many realms connected to your world. You were brought here because you have a role to play, a role your grandmother once held." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "My grandmother? What does she have to do with this?" Kale hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "She was a guardian, tasked with protecting the balance between realms. But the corruption spread too quickly, and she couldn't stop it. Now, it's up to you." Emma shook her head, her mind racing. "This is insane. I don't even know what's happening, and you expect me to just trust you." Kale took a step closer, his gaze steady. "I know this is overwhelming. But deep down, you know I'm telling the truth. You felt it when you touched the mirror, didn't you? That pull, that sense of purpose." Emma hesitated. He was right, there was something about him that felt familiar, something that made her want to trust him despite her doubts. She thought about it for a while, then agreed to work with Kale. Kale thanked her and then gestured toward the crystal castle in the distance. "The heart of Ether lies there. It's the source of this realm's power, but it's been corrupted. You must restore it. Follow me," Kale added. As they made their way toward the castle, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The glowing trees seemed to whisper as they passed, and shadows moved just beyond the edge of her vision. Kale explained that the corruption had given rise to dark creatures, twisted versions of the realm's guardians. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the air. From the shadows emerged a massive wolf-like creature, its fur black as night and its eyes glowing red. Emma froze, but Cale stepped forward, drawing a blade that shimmered with the same light as the trees. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice steady. The creature lunged, and Cale met it head-on. The fight was a blur of motion, the clash of steel against claws ringing through the air. Emma watched in awe as Cale moved with inhuman speed and precision, finally striking the creature down. "We need to keep moving," Cale said, sheathing his blade. "There will be more." When they reached the castle, Emma was struck by its beauty. The crystal walls reflected the purple sky, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. But as they approached the entrance, a barrier of light appeared, blocking their path. A voice echoed from within the castle, deep and resonant. "Only the worthy may enter. Prove yourself, Emma." Emma's breath caught. "How does it know my name?" Cale placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is your trial. You must face it alone." The barrier parted, revealing a path into the castle. Emma stepped forward, her heart pounding. Inside, the air was cool and still, and the walls seemed to hum with energy. She found herself in a grand hall, where 3 doors stood before her. Each bore a symbol, a flame, a drop of water, and a gust of wind. The voice spoke again. "Choose wisely, for each path holds a test of your courage, wisdom, and heart." Emma hesitated, then chose the door with the flame. Beyond it, she found herself in a room filled with fire. The heat was unbearable, but she pressed on, determined to prove herself. As she reached the center of the room, the flames parted, revealing a pedestal with a glowing ember. "Take it," the voice commanded. Emma reached out, her hand trembling as she grasped the ember. Instead of burning her, it filled her with warmth and strength. The flames vanished, and she returned to the hall, where the next door awaited. After completing the trials of water and wind, Emma stood before the final door. It led to the heart of ether, a massive crystal pulsating with light. But something was wrong, the light was dim and flickering, and dark tendrils of corruption snaked through the crystal. As Emma approached, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, her face eerily familiar. "Grandmother," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. The woman smiled, but it was cold and hollow. "Not quite, my dear. I am what remains of her, her doubts, her fears, her regrets. The corruption feeds on them, and soon, it will consume everything." Emma's heart ached. "I won't let that happen." The figure laughed, a sound that sent chills down Emma's spine. "You think you can stop it? You're just a child, playing at being a hero." But Emma stood firm. "I am her granddaughter. And I will finish what she started." With that, she placed her hands on the heart of ether, pouring all her strength and determination into it. The crystal began to glow brighter, the dark tendrils retreating. The figure screamed, dissolving into shadows as the corruption was purged. When Emma opened her eyes, she was back in the hidden room beneath her grandmother's house. The mirror was still, its surface reflecting only her own face. But something had changed. She could feel the power of the heart of ether within her, a connection to the realm she had saved. Cale appeared beside her, his expression one of pride. "You did it, Emma. You restored the balance." Emma smiled, but her heart was heavy. "What happens now?" "Now," Cale said, "you take your place as the new guardian. The journey is just beginning." As Emma looked around the room, she noticed something new, a map on the wall, marked with locations she didn't recognize. It was a guide to other hidden doors, other realms in need of protection. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her new responsibility. But she also felt something else, hope. She had uncovered the truth about her family, discovered her own strength, and found a purpose greater than herself.